In today's podcast, I'm going to be talking about how experience shapes culture. Everything that we experience as a leader shapes the culture that we create in our organization. And I'm really going to dig into how those experiences create the practices and policies and what that impacts. As a leader, we need to be incredibly self-aware. And one of the areas where I find that I have some trouble sometimes is seeing how my personal or professional experiences bleed over into everything that I touch from a leadership perspective. And while that's a great thing, I've had some amazing failures that I've learned a lot from, and I want to spare the pain of that for the people that I'm working with. But it can also color things in a way that's not productive for our teams or who we're leading. Whether it's the team that we lead or the organization that we lead in a professional capacity, it's board work or philanthropy that we do, or it's our family or a group of friends that we're leading. So those experiences shape the culture of the groups or organizations. And I want to talk a little bit about that today, what it affects, how it affects it, and what we need to do to make sure that we're not holding back healthy growth on the teams that we lead. So this is kind of embarrassing. I remember from my childhood dreading Thursday nights. I don't dread Thursday nights now, but as a kid, I dreaded Thursday nights because that was liver night at my house. And my mom, bless her heart, would alternate between beef liver and onions and fried chicken livers and mashed potatoes. And I didn't like either one of them. So on Thursday nights, I always tried to arrange to be somewhere else for dinner. But when I wasn't, I ended up sitting at that table until I finished every bite on my plate. That was the culture. You ate all of your dinner, or you didn't get anything else to eat for the rest of the night. Sometimes you had to go straight to bed after dinner if you didn't eat what mom told you that you needed to eat. My husband had a similar and probably more traumatic experience with pickled beets when he was about 8 years old. So the two of us brought those experiences into our family. And our practice in our family was that our kids had to try everything that we put on their plates. We would give them a small portion, and I can't remember whether we made them eat it all or not, but you better believe it was not chicken livers or beets. Interestingly, so that became the culture of our family. You had to try everything. So now I have grandkids, and I don't know if I traumatized my son in his childhood or not. I hope not. But I've noticed that his family has baby-led weaning, where they put foods in front of the baby and the baby can choose whether to pick up those sweet potatoes or those avocados or not. Completely different philosophy. I don't know which one's right, making your kids eat chicken livers or allowing your kids to pick and choose what they want to eat off of their plate. Everybody gets fed, but you can see that those experiences color the culture in that group. The same thing happens in a business perspective or a business setting, right? The experiences that the leader has affect what happens in the business. When my husband Kurt was first working in the publishing industry, they had a practice of cutting your commission and bumping your salary, which meant that you were working harder to make less or a lot harder to make the same amount every year. So when we started Charlie Bravo, that was never going to be the case. You didn't have to work more in order to make the same amount or work a lot harder to make a little bit more each year. There was a set amount that people were making. I had dinner last night with a pretty well-known public speaker, and his list of things that he requires of the assistants that travel around the world with him as he's speaking has gotten longer and longer over his 35 years of public speaking. And it's tainted or created, maybe I should say, out of experiences like missing flights or having your traveling partner be left behind in a Russian detaining cell while you travel back to the US because he forgot to put his return flight in correctly. Crazy things that shape our policies and practices. And so I want to talk a little bit about how that pertains to a company and how we shape our leadership and the workplace culture within our company. In aviation, every single federal aviation regulation comes from something, usually an accident or an incident that's caused the feds or the rulemakers to relook at what is going on. You know, there recently were some things that came down about 5G. Is the next phase of communications interfering with our ability to communicate within the cockpit and inside and outside of the cockpit to the tower? So it's really important to take experiences and put them into practices, procedures, and policies so that as we progress, we remain safe. So those experiences are valuable, but we also need to check them. We need to consider how our experiences as an aviator, as a company or nonprofit leader can affect 4 different things. And I want to talk about those today. The first is your people. I know I get busy with, oh, we need to do this, or oh, we need to address that. And sometimes I forget to pause and think about, how is this going to affect my team? What's the trade-off for putting this new policy or this new idea into practice with my team? Is it going to make their job more difficult, or is it going to make their job easier? Is it going to improve things for my team, or will it improve things for my customers? Every single thing that I do has a trade-off. So with my people, I have to be cautious and ask the question, is anything about this unreasonable, or do you see a better way to accomplish the same objective that's not going to take a toll on your time, your mental energy, your creativity, or your ability to do your job? So the first consideration when we're examining our experiences and the way that those are going to shape our organization going forward is, how will this affect my people? The second is, how does this affect my products? Wow, if I experienced something that was a huge frustration for me, I may want to apply that experience to the products or services that I offer. If I had a particularly exceptional or bad customer service experience, I may want to change a product or service that I have in accordance with that and improve upon what we already have. I may see an opportunity and want to roll out an entirely new product based on experience that I've had or that my customers or other people in the industry are having. That's why the Aviation Collective exists today, for that very reason. A new product was needed, and I wanted to develop that. I need constant feedback based not just on my experience, but on a wide swath of experience so that I create the best products possible. So people are a consideration. Product or service offerings are a consideration. Profits are a consideration, right? If we're in business for a profit, it's important to think about the bottom line. So my experiences may affect the pricing that I create. They may affect the amount of time that I spend on something, and they're certainly going to affect what I'm offering to the general public. If you're in a nonprofit, you're similarly driven because you have to provide value to the people who are investing in your nonprofit, either with their volunteer time or their money, if it's membership or some sort of public offering or foundation. People are still investing, and you still need to show some level of profitability, whether it's financial profitability or an impact profitability. So people, products, profitability, and the last is productivity. Is what my experience telling me going to affect my productivity? My speaker friend who has all of these practices in place, all of these rules that he goes through with anyone who travels with him, can affect his productivity when he's on the road. If he's speaking in one city to 3 different organizations in a 24-hour period, he needs to be extremely productive with each minute of each day. So what can he set in place that increases his productivity, sets the expectations for his traveling assistant's productivity, and gives both of them a big win? So as you're considering your people, your products, your profitability, and your productivity, I want you to ask, as a leader, is something in your experience prohibiting your team or organization from growing in a healthy manner? Each one of us as leaders is driving and directing workplace culture. Everyone in our organization contributes to that and influences that, but we're the one who's really pushing and driving that forward. So I'm challenging you today to dig in to that question. Is something in your experience prohibiting your team or organization from growing in a healthy way? I know maybe you have never made your kids try chicken livers. I didn't, but maybe there is a new way to get to the same place. Just like my parents were wanting me to have a balanced and healthy diet, and I was wanting the same thing for my kids. My daughter-in-law, who's a pediatric nurse practitioner, and my son, who's a great dad, want their kids to experience the best the world has to offer, and they want their kids to be healthy. All 3 generations took a different approach. And so I wonder if today you need to think about taking a little bit of a different approach. I hope this podcast has been helpful for you today. Well, I would love for you to share it with others and follow us at the Aviation Collective on social media. You can see all of those social buttons here. You can listen to this podcast on YouTube. You can also listen to it on all of the podcast platforms. It really helps if you give it a review. And so I'd love for you to do that as well. If you're interested in more information about workplace culture, please visit my website at theaviationcollective.com and download our most recent resources.